Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And I do mean again, on the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Rider. How you doing again, Joe?
I don't know if I want to talk anymore.
We got about 20 minutes in and the recording kind of went away. So Joe had a long rant about the weather because he's from Minnesota.
Yep. It's nice. It's very nice. It's like 77 degrees, low humidity, sunshine, and I'm sitting inside my darkened room, not recording a podcast.
And we'll discuss why Joe is having to do this on a Sunday afternoon. It's not my fault.
But you are to blame.
No, you're to blame.
No, you're.
And you
it's not. No, you.
For the error.
You have. See, and that's your first mistake. It's you never assign blame and fault. It's one or the other.
No. Where I work, when something goes wrong, first thing to do is assign blame and find out whose fault it is.
Yeah, it's not the same thing. You don't never assign both. You got to give somebody. It's the Han Solo method of surviving in the galaxy. You may be to blame, but it's not my fault.
How well did his Solo movie do?
That was a case of whiny, bitchy Star Wars fans.
Well, we actually started the episode, and I'll do it again. We want to We want to talk about the passing of DC editor and comic book legend Denny O'Neil, who passed away after a long illness at the age of 81. He passed away at home, and he actually started working in comics. I looked it up, 1966. He was working for a small newspaper and wrote a complimentary story about comics, which back then all comic book stories were, the Batman TV show. So it was biff, pow, wham, they still publish comics. Can you believe it? He wrote it more like, okay, this Marvel stuff is really starting to take up steam. Here's what's going on here. And Stan Lee was impressed and offered him a job. And Joe, do you know what the writing test was back at Marvel in the 60s? Roy Thomas talked about it a few times.
No, I don't.
They would hand you some pages of unlettered comics, and you were to script them. And Denny did a good job. He got hired on. He mostly wrote for Millie the Model, but he also did some work. I think he scripted some of Steve Ditko's Doctor Strange. There are a few stories here and there, but eventually he got on with Carlton under editor Dick Giordano. And Dick Giordano got hired, along with most of the people who worked for him from Carlton, to come over to DC. That's when you got books like Hawk and Dove and Steve Ditko's run over there. Denny got snapped up pretty quickly by Julie Schwartz to write Justice League. That's where he got onto Green Lantern, because that was one of Julie Schwartz's books, and Julie thought he did a good job coming up with stories for Justice League. So
what you're saying is the Schwartz was with him.
The Green Lantern, Green Arrow run with Neil Adams, which did not sell well at the time, but they repackaged it a bunch of times. They repackaged it as a couple of pocket books. In the early 80s, they were doing Baxter reprints. Joe, that's how you read it.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know what comics were priced, but for $2, you got 2 issues, and they reprinted the entire run. And that's was pretty much my first. Well, it was that or pay crazy prices for the back issues.
For Neil Adams.
Yeah.
It was them reprinted as trade paperbacks, hardcover. It's stories that have stayed in print. If you go back and read them now, they're pretty ham-fisted and heavy-handed, but that's kind of what they were back then. Then he and Neil Adams were moved over to Batman when Green Lantern, Green Arrow ended, and they reinvented Batman. This was after the Batman TV show. The Batman comic was kind of floundering. They didn't know what to do to get sales up because while the TV show was on, Batman sales were 600,000 copies a month. And then after the Batman TV show, they just plummeted to where they were in the bottom third of DC's stuff. So they handed it to Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil, who kind of brought in a gothic horror style. Mike Friedrich wrote some of these stories as well, but they reinvented Batman as the Dark Knight detective. And even if you go back and you read the real early Batman stories, Joe, you've got that golden age omnibus of Batman, right?
Paperbacks, I think.
The first few stories are very pulpy, but it very quickly turns into, very gimmicky stuff. The dark Batman only lasted issue 27 was the first Batman, issue 38 was the first Robin, and from issue 38 of Detective on, it was no longer the dark Batman. It was, kind of it was superhero stuff. They made the Joker.
Why I pulled quite a boner on Batman, didn't I? Yes.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, those 50 stories are they're impossible to read. They're just god-awful. But they're the ones who brought in Ra's al Ghul. They brought in the Joker as a killer again. Denny worked on Batman pretty much through the 70s until he went over to Marvel, where he was an editor and a writer. Most people know his Marvel run for two things. He hired Frank Miller to do Daredevil, and he had a very long run on Iron Man. He did the Iron Man the second Iron Man alcoholism story, which at the time I thought this story's never going to fucking end because it lasted like 45 issues. Joe, do you know why Denny O'Neil was let go from Marvel?
Wasn't he guest cast on an episode of T.J. Hooker?
I wouldn't know. I've never seen T.J. Hooker.
Oh, I don't either. I just, the shot's on it. That's the only reason I know.
You just like T.J. Hooker because of Heather, what's her name?
Oh, damn straight.
And Adrian Zmed.
Mm-hmm.
Adrian Zmed, who was in the TV Guide crossword puzzle pretty much the entire 80s because ZMED is easy to fit in. No, he was, if you were an editor at Marvel, you could pick up writing assignments as long as you did them on your own time. Denny did them on office time and would kind of slough off the editorial stuff onto his assistant editor. He'd basically lock his door to write his scripts for stuff. And DC picked him up immediately, put him to work as an editor and a writer. After Crisis, he was pretty much given Batman, and that's where he stayed until he retired. But he did a run of comics that is one of my favorite comic runs of all time. That is The Question, which Steve Ditko's... Remember back when I said that Dick Giordano brought over all his people from Carlton? One of them was Steve Ditko. It was a series that Steve Ditko had done at Carlton. When Carlton went under, DC bought the character, and Denny O'Neil took the character who was very much along the lines of Ditko's Objectivist. He was kind of an early version of Mr. A, which, Joe, you've read, right?
Tried to.
Yeah. Where right is right and wrong is wrong, there is no gray. And in a lot of ways, his character was a lot like the Creeper as well, because both of them were reporters who were interested at getting in the truth, and when things would get in their way of them punishing the bad guys, they would become either the Question or the Creeper. Denny O'Neil took it over and made the Question into a Zen warrior. And normally I would say pick up the trade paperbacks, but I'm going to recommend that you go through the back issue bins and pick up the back issues, because the letters pages was one of the greatest letters pages in comics. I read every book that was recommended. Every month there would be a book recommendation, and could be a book on philosophy. It could be a book connected to the story. I was, in college when it started, which is when you are looking for these, books that are have a little more intellectual heft, and it really guided a lot of my philosophical learning and getting into the to philosophy. He also had editorials. He did. They had some of the best letters where they would discuss things that were serious rather than, I think it'd be fun if the question would punch Blue Beetle in the face. His stint as the Batman editor pretty much created everything you've ever known about Batman from 1988 on. And one of my favorite stories about Denny O'Neil was when the new Batman movie would get done at Warner Brothers would show it to the people at DC so they could plan their printing strategy around it. Like with Batman Forever, okay, it's going to have Two-Face, it's going to have the Riddler, we're going to need the stories around that, some trade paperbacks, etc., etc. So when the movie Batman and Robin was going to come out, they had them all in a theater, and before the movie, they're talking about, okay, we need to have a new Bane story. We need to, do Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy. And then the lights went down and they watched the movie. And Joe, you've seen Batman and Robin, right?
Oddly enough, I enjoyed seeing it in the theater. And I think it was because I was with our good buddy Nick Post, and we probably just Mystery Science Theater it. But all I know is when I remember watching it later, if I may steal your quote.
Well, the movie unspools. They watch it. The lights come up. Denny turns to the entire Batman team and says, "We're fucked."
Yeah, I think my kids were a little upset when I made them watch it.
My son made me watch it in the theater. He was 8, and it's Batman.
Batman. I'm Batman.
And then he grew up, and he wants to revisit his childhood, so he picks up the nice big 4 DVD, actually the 4 Blu-ray set with all the extras and everything. And he watches the first one, is better than I remember. And the second one is like, wow, that was really good. And the third one's, that was okay. And when he gets to the fourth one, I don't hear anything until the movie's over, and he taps me on the shoulder and says, "I'm so sorry I made you sit through that." He didn't even make me sit through Catwoman. Catwoman, we were able to leave. Nope, Batman and Robin.
I'm always of the. I don't think I've ever gotten up and left a movie. I have turned them off, but I figure if I paid my money, I would probably stick through it.
I can count on one hand the number of movies I've left during.
I mean, for God's sakes, I saw King Kong Lives in the theater. There was only 3 of us at midnight showing, and we were so loud, they came and told us to quiet down.
Although I don't leave movies that other people normally would. When I saw the movie House of the Dead, I went opening night. Because, hey, this is going to be a crappy Uwe Boll movie. I'm going to love this. And I like zombie movies anyway. So I go, and there's only, like 20 people in the theater. It's god-awful. If you've not seen House of the Dead, it is god-awful. It is barely competent. And about a half hour into the movie, some guy in the front stands up and says, "If this is the worst movie you've ever seen, give me a hell yeah." And we all go, "Hell yeah." And he says, "Let's go." And he leaves and nobody follows him. And all I'm thinking is, this is the worst movie I've ever seen. I'm not going anywhere. It's going to get worse from here. And it did.
Ugh.
After Denny retired, he spent a lot of time, he would write,
Watching
but he
bad
would also...
movies. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
he would also teach people. He put out a couple of books through DC about how to write comics, did seminars at conventions on writing technique and how to put together stories. 81. And it's always weird when one of the Silver Age or Bronze Age creators passes away and you see how old they are. And 81. And I remember thinking, you know, back when I was a kid, that, oh, he's a grown-up. He's writing comics. So, yeah, a lot of the people from the Bronze Age, Joe, were in their 60s and 70s. And it makes me go, wait, they're as old as the people from the Golden Age were when I was a kid. And, oh, yeah.
And we're almost there, too. We were 45 when we started this here podcast. Look how it ages us.
Well, here's the thing. On the Twitter and the Facebook, you know, you've got that trending thing. One of the things that's trending today is Gen X.
Uh-oh.
And me being a part of Gen X. I was going to look it up, but then I said, oh, well, whatever. Never mind. We got previews.
I'm sorry, I just did a spit take all over myself.
It's 2 months worth of previews. I think
Never
it's supposed to be
that.
August.
Oh, and can I tell them what sucks about it, Corey?
Sure. Joe, you have the floor.
Okay, first off, and I didn't notice this until I was all prepared to bitch. I paid $5 for this stupid thing. Nope, I paid $4. So they did drop the price, even though the catalog's as big as usual. There's no Marvel insert. They'd actually have Marvel in the book, and I had to ask. I went over to the source to pick up a copy because my copy is still stuck in shipping limbo with Discount Comic Book Service. So I'll probably get it after it's due. So I picked up a copy there, and I had to ask him 3 times. No Marvel, right? No. Okay, I look inside. There's no Marvel, right? And Burl came by. Nope, it's inside. It's like, because I know there's no DC. So there's no Marvel and no DC. Let me address the Marvel first. 90% of what's in Marvel's section are relists. And they're things that you've already ordered and probably don't need to order again. How can you tell? Well, when you look at the listing and it gives you the date and says order code February, order code April, order code March. Those of you already ordered, so you don't have to order them again. I haven't even looked on Discount Comic Book Service to see if those lines are there. I did get the Marvel order book, which I don't normally order because all it does is reprint what's online. And the Marvel thing is very small, and it just has June orders. I mean, you're talking it's not even a half a page. So I can tell what's new versus what's reordered. Because I'm looking through it like Empire 4 and 5. Wait a minute, flip to last month because I do all mine in a notebook. I'm a Luddite that way. Oh, I already ordered it. Amazing Spider-Man 4647. Oh, already ordered it. So 90% of what Marvel has in their listing are reorders, and that's how you can tell. There is no DC catalog. There's nothing about DC in there.
Well, there is. Let's go to page 25?
This is the interactive portion of the show, so if you do have yourself a previews, you may play along.
On page 25, each issue of DC Previews is a comic book size 88-plus page full color guide and preview to all of DC's upcoming releases. It's your number one source for.
If I may,
it's free with a purchase of previews, Joe.
If I may quote Tom from a classic Tom and Jerry cartoon, don't you believe it? Yeah.
This is why I think DC pulling out of previews. And for those of you who were teenage parents, you know how well pulling out works. Hi-oh!
These are the jokes, people.
Okay, you didn't like that one? Let me try again. So okay. DC has pulled out of previews, and for those of you who are Catholic, you know how well pulling out works. Hi-oh!
Hi-oh! And I'm Catholic, so I don't find that offensive. Yeah, nothing in DC. To me, Well, you've already said it. We've already made our explicit quota. This is a giant fuck you from DC because I have no way of ordering things. Now, we're probably going to get into, yeah, you can go online. It's all listed digitally, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Again, I'm a Luddite. For 20 years, maybe 30 if you go all the way back into the 90s and 80s, I've been ordering things out of a catalog. Advanced Comics, Diamond Comics. And now DC is soliciting stuff without anything in print. Not even so much as a direct currents or like a Marvel Age or any type of supplement. Why would I even care what DC is carrying if they're making it impossible for me to get in there? You heard me a couple months ago when I didn't get my previews and I had to do everything digitally. I hate it. Absolutely hate it. Oddly enough, in the order form, and the only reason I have the order form, I usually don't order it. I used to back when Diamond would list in the back all the things that were canceled and why, which always was helpful to discover, you know, hey, why haven't I gotten that thing that I ordered, that thing they sent me, you know? But so I have in here, there are 2 pages of Diamond order codes for DC Comics, but I have no description, and I'm not even sure if you could order them through Diamond. And, you know, they got highlight some things like Batman 3 Joker, Swamp Thing Twisted Branches, Dream Waking Hours. I don't have a description on these. I have no effing clue if I even want them. Even looking at the collected edition, I see, let's see, there's a Batman Road to No Man's Land's Omnibus, which has my attention only because as I'm reading the American Chronicle of Comics, I'm through that section in 1997, 1998, where No Man's Land is starting. So yeah, I might have some reason to want to drop $125 and pick it up. Or the JLA by Grant, I'm assuming Morrison Omnibus, or even the Sandman Book of Magic Omnibus, since I'm not getting any trade paperbacks like I ordered Volume 1, and that was 2 years ago. So yeah, DC, get your fucking act together, or you're just out of it. It'll be the easiest previews ever because I'll just sit back and say, Corey, tell me what you're buying from DC because I ain't buying shit from them no more. But that's not here. That's not here what we come to talk about.
And I wonder how much of it was AT&T going, why are you? No, don't print that. You're printing it at a loss. Don't do it.
I'm pretty sure it is because we already know just from the often repeated Brian Hibbs quote that AT&T execs told him, we're not even sure why we're publishing these things. You know, they don't need DC Comics. You know, they can do like Ron Perlman did back when he bankrupted Marvel and dropped the comic industry from over $500 million a year to, what was it, 80 million in a course of like, I mean, it was amazing. I saw the figures and my jaw dropped, and I still to this day don't know how my comic shop survived. So yeah, they don't need it. What they can do is they can take all the copy marks and trademarks and spin it off into its own little piece within the AT&T empire. And then if they want to make a movie or they want to make some Underoos or they want to give McFarlane the toy license, they can just license it out to themselves or to anybody buying it. They don't need comic books. So yes, this is a very scary time for comic books because now not only do you have large corporation in charge of what do Marvel DC have? A good 60, 70% of the industry?
Yeah.
And, you know, will Disney continue to publish comics? Who knows? They don't need to. You know, as long as I've said this dozens of times. I might have said it in the last podcast because I'm pretty sure we were bitching about it then. It's amazing that for as long as big business has had their fingers in DC and Marvel, that nobody has just messed it up. We've heard things like when, what was his name? Turner come down from on high when he was still part of the Time Warner AOL empire and told DC, you're going to sign Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman over to my corporation within Time Warner to be exploited properly. And DC said, no. which at that time they could. That won't happen in Disney. If Disney comes along and says, guys, we need to really exploit the Marvel Universe better, comics ain't part of it. So yeah, this again, I'm reading this stuff in the 90s when we all thought this was the end, and it wasn't because things came along. But will there be comic books? Oh, hell yeah. Will Eisner said it. Somebody's always going to want to publish comics. If not, maybe Corey and I, we should do a podcast of reviews just from small press stuff. We kind of did that a few back when we took some really offbeat titles. And, heck, last podcast, I interviewed Cow, or reviewed Cow.
You interviewed a cow?
I did. It was utterly fantastic. I did have to milk it for a while because they're very tight-lipped. As you could. Anyways. So this will probably be the shortest previews ever.
Not if you keep stuffing it full of dad jokes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's begin at the beginning.
Which, in this case, is Image.
And hold on, before we start. Due to COVID-19 effects on the industry, many of the release dates on forthcoming launches and collected editions are still subject to change. Retailers will be notified of any updates to Image release dates via Diamond's vendor site. Image will continue to offer. Image will continue to message consumers via official social media channels of upcoming titles and encourage them to support.
Savage Dragon's gonna be late.
And independent bookstores through this crisis by ordering from shops' online stores, taking advantage of curbside pickup, and donating to the BINC Foundation. I thought that was interesting.
I thought I grew a new hair on my knuckle while you were talking.
Image! Joe,
Seriously, if you want to keep this previews as a historical document, you probably should. Because, I mean, oddly enough, I sold my advanced comics that had the death of Superman in it for silly money. So, I wish I had the space. Keeping previews is probably, you're talking about things that people dispose of that may be worth money later. I'm just saying this would be a keeper because of not only the COVID-19, but the fact this is where DC pulled out and Marvel didn't know what to do with themselves. But for Image, because that's where we start, I'm going to direct you right to page 50. Remember, this is a interactive one, so page numbers are fun. Hedra, One Shot by Jesse Lonergan. It says it's a trim size, so it means a little bit bigger. But this, I had to stop and think about this one. I'm getting it for two reasons. First of all, there's not a hell of a lot else to get. And second, I thought the artwork they give 5 pages on page 50, 51, and then the explanation was intriguing. In the glorious exploration of comics medium with echoes of 2001, A Space Odyssey, Flash Gordon, Chris Ware, and Mobius, a lone astronaut leaves a world ravaged by nuclear war in search of life. What she finds is beyond all expectations. And the fact that it's a one-shot, and I'm not really very excited to start other series when I just want the series I'm already doing to continue. This kind of fit the bill. So this is one that I'm going to be picking up. Other than what I normally pick up, and I mentioned Savage Dragon because of resoliciting 251. That's pretty much it for me. How about you, Mr. Strode? Tell them what you're getting, Corey.
Let's see. On page...
Dun, dun, dun.
Flip.
59.
59.
Remember, folks, we've done this
Cruel Summer.
Oh, it's a cruel summer.
Which reprints Criminal number 1, 5 through 12, which is story of Teague Lawless. If you've been reading the Criminal series, the Lawless family is the main focus, I would say, of the series, and this is their backstory, basically kind of pulling together all the little hints that he's dropped through the entire series. And you're looking at it going, well, what about issues 2, 3, and 4? Those are in the book Bad Weekend, which has already been put out, which is a story of a comic book artist who has decided to hire someone to kill a rival. So, Criminal's one of my favorite books. This is a fantastic story. It's not done yet, but there's the hardcover. And
It's
then
also trim. It's in trim size.
And on the
Unlike
next page,
the previous page on page 58 has a Witchblade #1 25th anniversary edition, if you're so into that. This Image is taking a book out of the other two guys and reprinting some fabulous books. And really, it's not really anything now, but boy, back in the 90s when I had my comic shop, Witchblade with Michael Turner drawing it was hot, beyond hot. And
well,
when
this is really the book that made Michael Turner.
Oh, yeah. And when he later went on to do Fathom, and Fathom was hot beyond hot, nowadays they're not, but, this is your chance. If you've never picked it up, again, what do they call them in Marvel and DC? Milestones or facsimile editions, that's the word. This is probably the closest you'll get here. And they did say it's a limited edition, printed once. And so if you're looking, this might end up being worth more money than the actual #1. Who knows? But you were mentioning something on the next pages.
Yes, on page 61 is a Walking Dead story that I guarantee most of you have not read. It's called The Alien. It's by Brian Vaughan, not Robert Kirkman. It actually saw print in panelsyndicate.com, which was an online service for a while. It does tie in with The Walking Dead. It shows what's going on outside of the U.S. And that is all I will tell you because it's got a real gut punch of a twist ending. So if you're a Walking Dead completist, you'll want to pick it up. If you just want to read the story, wait for the paperback because it's only 72 pages for $20. Then on pages, let's see here, 64 and 65, Image is highlighting the $1 #1 books. So if there are any Image books that you've been interested in and want to give a try, let your retailer know. They can order any of these and you just pay $1. $1!
A lot of the better comic stores actually have a lot of these available. And I would encourage comic shops to pick these up because for $1, gives somebody a chance to try something. And if you really want to get inventive, just say, buy this for $1. And if you like it, I'll give you $1 off a trade paperback when you come back to buy it. We got to do something to get business going. And that's my free idea to you folks.
And really, that was it for new stuff from Image. What about the Dark Horse, Joe?
Three whiffs. You struck out. Absolutely nothing from Dark Horse.
I would like to point out on page 94, X-Ray Robot, which is the Michael Allred's miniseries that actually just started up. Max is a family man seeking a more interesting life. While conducting a new experiment at work, the fabric of his reality is torn before his eyes, and a robotic figure appears, claiming to be him as a 277-year-old person. I have read the first issue. It's Michael Allred, so it's great.
I should point out that Dark Horse is only offering trade paperbacks this month. And they also list a lot of relists, so this would be a good chance not only to get caught up on some stuff, but also, like I mentioned in previous ones on page 105, there's Hench Girl trade paperback. I'll just go ahead and read the description. Mary Posa hates her job. She works long hours for little pay, no insurance, and worst of all, no respect. Her co-workers are jerks. Her boss doesn't appreciate her. He's also a supervillain. She's cursed with a conscience. Mary would give anything to be something other than a hench girl. And this is the second print. So if you've never read it, I read the issues. I own the trade somewhere. So if you call your comic store, they may have a first edition because second editions are on their way.
And then next is DC.
Who? What? I don't see no DC. Don't know what you're talking about.
If you want DC's new digital, you can get it from DCB Service or
Midtown
Books,
Yeah.
any of the comic comic news websites.
There isn't like
DC
a
Comics
single spot
themselves.
to go. No, it's not like having an actual, piece of, something in my hands that I can, sit back and, sip the old lemonade while, taking pot shots at rabbits, eating my wife's, plants outside.
Why are you taking pot shots at rabbits? The rabbits are nice.
They shouldn't be eating my wife's flowers that way.
Well, tell Bun Bun to behave.
No, Fun Bun's inside. He behaves himself. It's those wacky ones outside. They're even bold. We come outside and they just kind of look at us like, what you gonna do?
Sounds like the raccoons.
No, raccoons run away.
No, they don't.
Man, you got
they turn and hiss.
Well, that's okay. I can hiss with them too.
Well, you may need to.
See, I would rather talk about raccoons than order anything from DC. I got nothing to order from. Nothing.
Well, the Three Jokers, which Jeff Johns has been talking about as his big Batman story that will fix Batman continuity that he's been talking about since DC Rebirth is finally coming out.
No, it isn't.
Coming through Black Label, $7 for 48 pages, a 3-part miniseries. Let's see. They are continuing to squeeze money out of Deceased, and Death Metal is now a 7-issue miniseries. I also want to point something out, Joe.
What's that?
You know how the Generations thing was solicited, and they were going to have the first part as free comic book day book? 5G is dead.
It's dead, Jim.
They have told everybody working on it to stop.
Well, I have heard a lot of chatter. There's a lot of Batman fans all excited for Joker War.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what it is because I have checked that out.
It is a crossover that will be starting in the Batman books.
No idea. No,
Batman 100.
Nope. No DC. Nothing happening. I'm back on the Grant Morrison omnibus. That's how far back I am in Batman. I've largely checked out since New 52. But I will, as long as they keep pumping out those omnibuses for Grant Morrison stuff, I will try picking them up.
And they have introduced yet another new character for the Joker War. We had, what's the Joker's new girlfriend's name?
I don't remember. That issue sold out before it even hit the stands.
Well, now there's a new character, the Clown Hunter, that they're going to push him to be as big as that character. But no, the Joker War is going to be a big tie-in for all the Batman books leading up to Batman 100. And boy, there's a lot of it.
I did hear that, I can't think of his name. He's going to be off. He said he's going to be leaving Superman. Did he say when?
No. And here's the thing. He said in a podcast that he is beginning to wrap up his run on Superman. And then, in a wonderful case of backpedaling, it's a long way off. It's a long way off. So DC might have told him, shut up. One of the things was he had planned for his Superman run to end with 5G starting. As did the current writer on Batman, James Tynion IV. He was going to be wrapping up his Batman run with 5G starting. Now that 5G's not starting, I know James Tynion has said that, I've got tons of Batman stories. I would imagine that Bendis already, knowing him, has commitments for when 5G would have started on Superman and can't get out of them because he's one of those guys who plans his career very far in advance. So a lot of shuffling and weird stuff.
I was planning to drop Action and Soups at about the 25s. And as a matter of fact, I did see on the list, since I don't have any descriptions, all I got's a list, and I probably won't even have that next month, that they're resoliciting both Action and Superman. So I'll be on board maybe a couple more issues, and then I'll probably just go away. Because Bendis' run just isn't exciting me.
No. Another new book from DC Black Label, part of the Sandman universe, The Dreaming Waking Hours. It's written by G. Willow Wilson. There's a variant cover by Bill Sienkiewicz. I believe on here it does not say so, but it has been retroactively been made into a mini series. They have also canceled 2 of the other Sandman universe books. I think the only one that's going to be going is going to be Hellblazer.
So Books of Magic and House of whatever.
House of Whispers.
Whispers, yeah.
Yeah,
which I already dropped.
Chopping block.
I dropped. And I already sold.
DC is no longer having the DC Giants, the 100-page Giants, through the direct market. And I've talked about this in the past. DC was, they signed this contract with Walmart comic shops. Oh, how dare you have these books that we can't have? So they renegotiate the contract. Here you go. We'll even give you special covers. We don't care.
We don't care.
And that happens a lot when publishers make these deals outside the comic market. Comic shops lose their shit. And then when it's offered, comic shops don't bother to order it.
Yeah.
If I were a publisher, I would just ignore them when they do that stuff.
They should. So that just means you're going to have to go to Walmart to get your fix.
Yeah, well, they were running so far behind anyway. I was mostly just going to Walmart anyway. Because it's like, okay, it's only 2 miles out of my way. And there were no comics for 2 months. Got to remember that.
Yeah.
Let's see, looking here for the facsimiles. Wonder Woman #1 facsimile edition, the George Perez #1 Wonder Woman.
It might be fun just to see what the ads were back then. Or go dig it out. It's probably only in the buck box.
Let's see. We got a new big box set. The Blackest Night, Brightest Day box set.
For $300.
$300. It's got 12 brand new hardcovers with the entire epic. I love Blackest Night. Brightest Day, not so much.
Yeah. I think I've got... I don't know what I have. Oh, I've got the Brightest Day omnibus. I must have picked it up for like $10 somewhere. So, would be nice to get the Blackest Night back in print.
They reprinted that about a year ago.
Yeah, probably just one of those months we got 25 omnibuses. Which one are you going to buy? Or maybe I did order it and it just hasn't delivered. I don't know.
Let's see here. The Aquaman Deadly Waters Deluxe Edition actually reprints the last 7 issues of Aquaman. Aquaman 49 through 56. That was by Steve Skeets and Jim Aparo. 208 pages for $40. Holy crap, that's a lot of money for that. This is the one that really bugs me, though. Batman the Demon Trilogy, which has Batman Birth of the Demon, Bride of the Demon, and Son of the Demon. Those 3 hardcover trade paperback, hardcover graphic novels that came out. 320 pages, $75. Cost of a small omnibus for what should be just a regular trade paperback. Speaking of omnibuses, they've also got Batman, The Road to No Man's Land, which is leading up to, there was the Cataclysm, which was a huge earthquake hit Gotham City.
And destroyed the Batcave.
And most of Gotham City. And then the federal government said, you're on your own. So they walled it up and nobody was allowed in or out. And I remember at the time going, well, that's bullshit. That could never happen. And then a few years later, we got Hurricane Katrina, where the federal government just said, New Orleans is on its own. So, and No Man's Land was actually a really good story. This is all the stuff leading up to it. So it's kind of a mix of the 90s, early 90s Batman team and the late 90s Batman team working together on these. If you're going to be picking up No Man's Land, you probably want this as well, because this sets the stage for everything. Back when Batman was tied into every goddamn thing. JLA by Grant Morrison Omnibus, which reprints all of his JLA stories, including JLA Earth 2, JLA 1 Million. This is a run where it was interrupted. He would get behind, so Mark Waid would do a story, and then he would do a story, and Mark Waid would do a story. These are all the Grant Morrison stories. This was a fantastic run. Absolutely loved this run of the JLA.
Once the art style calmed down, the early couple issues were pretty hyper image type stuff, you know, or just a lot of cross hatching, a lot of wild angles. But once it kind of calmed down, those first 3 issues were fun. And I remember reading the heck out of them, but I went back to look at them and I'm like,
yeah,
ugh.
Howard Porter's art did not hold up. The other thing about the JLA, everybody was shocked that it did so well. It's like, well, he's got the actual Justice League. The problem with the Justice League comic, in my opinion, half the time they're like, okay, we need to pull Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and Green Lantern out of it. Who are you going to put in? Guy Gardner, the Elongated Man, Ultra A.
Yeah. T-Man.
Justice League is the best of the best. It will sell well when you have those characters in it and a competent creative team. If it's Aquaman leading 6 other people who don't have their own books and no one cares, no one's going to care.
And it did tie into other continuity lightly. They stood the story on their own, but like when Superman went into his Superman Blue phase, I remember, I think it was the Secret Files story, which should be in there, where Superman wanted everybody to vote as to whether or not he stays on the team.
Yeah.
And the deciding vote got to Batman, and he's in his Batcave doing whatever he does. And they were, we need to know. He's Superman. He's in. I may be paraphrasing that, but that was essentially it. You know, so there was, and if I believe this was also, was it John Byrne's run where he replaced Wonder Woman with his mother?
Yeah.
That's referred to, but it's smooth and it doesn't stop the story Grant's trying to say. So he obviously kept an eye on what everybody else was doing, said, okay, I'll just, I can have Wonder Woman in. It doesn't make a difference if it's her because the stories were pretty solid. I'm still kind of curious about how it ended, but when the Omnibus comes out, maybe we'll revisit that run and yeah. I'm also curious as to how much 1 million is going to be in there because there is a 1 million Omnibus out there, which has everything.
The other omnibus that I'm excited about is the Lucifer Omnibus Volume 2, which reprints the Vertigo story. It's no longer a Vertigo book, by the way, Joe. It's a Black Label.
I have blackness.
This reprints Lucifer 36 through 75.
As long as you seem to know everything, go down to Sandman Book of Magic Omnibus and tell me what's in it.
Oh, let's see. That is Books of Magic 1 through 32, Children's Crusade 1 and 2, Vertigo Preview, Vertigo Visions, Dr. Occult, Arcana Annual number 1, Mr. E 1 through 4, and Books of Fairy, Oberon's Tale. I'm very surprised it does not have the first 4 the miniseries Books of Magic, but it does not.
That's probably because they spin that off and sell it as its own hardcover for $50. So I may buy that one just because, like I said, I've got to go see first. Oh, let me power up the Kraytron 4000 here. Favorite site of renown.
Atomic Avenue.
Book of Magic. Not books. Book of Magic doesn't come up.
No, it's Books of Magic.
Oh, Books. Thank you. That's a Books of, the miniseries was book. There it is. Books of Magic. First series. Well, they say they've got 75 issues. How many are in the omnibus?
The first 30, no, 20. Okay. Hold on. There we go. See, I have to scroll backwards.
Another reason 32. I don't like it. Up to 32, so we could expect the second one whenever they get around to it. Okay, well, that one's on the maybe list.
There is a book I would buy if it wasn't so goddamn expensive, and that is Superman versus Wonder Woman tabloid edition hardcover. This was one of the tabloid, we used to call them Treasury edition, now they call them tabloid edition. This tabloid-size epic from 1978 tells the tale of a forgotten chapter of World War II in which Superman and Wonder Woman cross paths while the United States stands at the brink of developing nuclear weapons. The only reason I would pick it up is it's drawn by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, but it's inked by Dan Atkins. And $40 for a 72-page book. $40 for a 72-page book.
Yep, that was the no.
There are a couple other omnibuses I'm not interested in. Let's see, the Super Sons omnibus, which reprints the most recent Super Sons series. I think, yeah, that was it.
Okay. Next up, boom. No, I'm sorry, IDW. Well, I got nothing out of IDW.
I don't think I did either.
I got nothing.
Although I'm mildly interested in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin, because it is the reuniting of Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. Now, Joe, we know that they haven't got along for a while. Why did they decide? What caused them to put that together?
It's probably one had a guest starring role on T.J. Hooker.
No, it's something that you watched.
I didn't do it. I was young. I needed the money.
They hadn't talked in forever, but the people who do the Toys That Made Us got them together.
Oh.
So have you seen the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode?
I have not.
You should watch that because it's very heartwarming. They get together and the stuff that they were mad about kind of melts away. And out of that, they decided to put together a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles story.
Oh, fun.
So I may pick it up just for that. I don't know yet. Go to page 135, Joe.
I'm just trying to see, is it a one-shot or?
It doesn't say, but it looks like a one-shot to me.
Oh yeah, well, I might put that down too. Hang on a second. Let me look in my. Will you say the page number again? While you folks at home flip the pages.
Page 118 is The Last Ronin.
Oh, there it is. Let's see, The Last Ronin.
Also, it will be printed.
One of
Remember
5.
how Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was in that weird format?
Yeah.
This will be too.
Okay. This is what I like on the order book. It says it's 1 of 5.
Oh,
so
good.
5 issues.
It does not say anything here.
Yeah, which IDW. That's fucking annoying. But I will. That made my decision. I will definitely wait for the trade or hardcover or whatever. Okay. Anything else, IDW?
Please go to page 135, Joe.
Oh man, 135, 137, 135. Okay.
Star Wars Adventures Annual 2020. A Jackson solo story.
Hot damn.
Yes, the big green rabbit that Lucasfilm got really pissed about in the Star Wars comic. It's back. He's back. He's back.
We need a team up between him and Jar Jar.
He's canon, by the way.
He is. Shot out of one, but he's there.
So, yeah, I got to get that because I'm a big fan of Zaxxon just because of the story behind the character. Roy Thomas said, why not? Because he kept saying, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? Well, you can't do this, and you can't do this, and you can't do this. So he did that story. He put Zaxxon in there, and they said, oh, and you can't do that.
Although he did come back in an annual somewhere.
After.
Yeah.
Was no longer paying attention.
Yep. They had bigger fish to fry.
Then we got Marvel. Big news on page 155, Joe.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is the story I've waited decades for. And the fact that it's written by Peter David, who, as I've said before, I would buy the phone book if he wrote it. And what makes it even more fun, he's reuniting with Dale Keown.
Well, it's hard to tell if Keown is, what is he doing?
Well, there's two people listed, German Pertalta and Gail Keown. And although there are variant covers and stuff, they are saying that he's with astonishing art from Hulk veteran Dale Keown and up-and-comer German Peralta. You know me in names. But it's been 30 years since Future Imperfect, which is the Incredible Hulk story that Peter David wrote that introduced us to the Maestro, a future version of the Hulk, and master of what remains of the world. And it was a crazy story then, and I can't wait to see the miniseries now. So that one definitely is on the to-buy list.
Now turn the page to number 156, Joe.
I've got to turn the page. Oh,
let's say you can't find your two perfect bound deluxe version Future Imperfect. Well, you can buy it as a Marvel Tales.
Or the hardcover that had that, plus the Dale Keown Peter David story, The End.
But nope, there it is, $7.99, which is as much as the Prestige one of the two Prestige format books were.
Definitely worth picking up.
If you have not read this story, pick it up. It is a fantastic, fantastic Hulk story, drawn by George Perez, who once again threw in more shit than was asked for.
Oh yeah, it is. Oh yeah, we don't want to spoil it. Just enjoy it.
Let's see. There's a half ton of stuff tying into Empire.
Well, those are all reprints. Or I should say, not reprints.
Resolicitations.
Not even that. They're just listed again. Because if you've ordered them once, you've already ordered them. So don't order them again.
However, the page 165.
155. Now, this is one of those books that we probably should wait for the trade.
I can't.
But Mark Waid and Neil Adams doing Fantastic Four Antithesis. 4-issue series.
It's going to be Neil Adams with a story.
Yeah.
Because, I bought the Neil Adams Batman story. Makes no fucking sense. Bought the Neil Adams Superman story. Makes no fucking sense. Hey, he's going to be doing something where Mark Waid writes it. This will make sense. And just that art right there. Oh, Neil Adams. He's never done a Fantastic Four story, by the way, Joe.
Never?
Never.
Now, I was in a bit of a tizzy with all the omnibuses listed, but then when I finally figured out that there are only lists, a lot of them are relists, or how do we say it? They're just resolicitations. So I may partake of the New Mutants Omnibus Volume 1. I'm not sure which one I want to go with, either the Sienkiewicz cover or the McLeod cover, which is a reprint of the first issue New Mutants. But these were actually really fun stories. The New Mutants came around, and when it first came out, it was quite a rage because there had only been one X-Men book. You had the Wolverine miniseries, and I don't remember if Kitty Pryde Wolverine had been published yet.
Not yet.
So they came out with a graphic novel, and we're talking like magazine-sized graphic novel, Marvel graphic novel number 4, which is in this, introducing the New Mutants, where basically Xavier gets out of his funk because he thought all the X-Men were dead.
There's more to it than that.
I'll give you a hint. They were out in outer space.
Here's the sad thing. The reason he pulled them all together was not, that plot was not tied up in the New Mutants. It was tied up in the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Should I spoil it?
No, because then people won't want to buy New Mutants Omnibus, which you buy now.
They will.
And it'll come out.
It's just a subplot. Here's the thing about the New Mutants.
Kind of like Xavier having the hots for Jean Grey all those years. Just a subplot.
Here's the thing. The first, 17 issues are very much, teenage. It's almost teenage soap opera stuff with some superheroes in it. Then issue 18, Bill Sienkiewicz comes on, and everything goes batshit insane, and it's amazing.
It is.
And I remember at the time when, issue 16, that's Sal Buscema had drawn it. And, it was very, it was no different from any other Marvel book. Then issue 18, Bill Sienkiewicz, who had given up being Neil Adams Part 2 and had gone more impressionistic. And it's like, holy crap, what the hell is this? And there were people who, like, I don't know, is this even comics anymore? And that was tame Bill Sienkiewicz compared to Elektra Assassin. So, and of all things, it was on the New Mutants. So, yeah, this is a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun. Let's see what else jumped out.
And it does cover all the way through Bill's run, so it's a good cutoff point. Right before Secret Wars 2 tie-in. Well, Secret Wars 2 tie-in was actually kind of interesting because the Beyonder in a hissy fit kills the New Mutants. Oh, was that a spoiler?
Yeah, they got better.
Yeah, they well, sort of. But I know that because I read the Secret Wars 2 omnibus. And what was weird about it was, as you're reading it in the order that Shooter wanted you to, it really takes a left turn that, all of a sudden the Beyonder just, bam, kills these guys. You're kind of like, whoa. And it happens in the New Mutants, not in what's going to be in the omnibus. And if you're just reading the series, it's like all of a sudden the main series is like, what? He did what? He did what? So anyways, so a good cutoff point right there at issue 35. And then you got a bunch of other fun things. When the X-Men come back to Earth, I believe, and the New Mutants are like, say what? Because they think everybody's dead. And of course, the X-Men come back and they're like, hey, who are these punks? And they weren't punks. A few other things.
Kitty Pryde got sent to the New Mutants, which is the greatest splash page ever. Professor Xavier is a jerk.
You got Magic 1 through 4, which was one of the whatever. It was just a mini-series. I'm curious about Marvel Team Up 100.
That is the first appearance of Karma.
Okay, that explains it. Oh, and that was Frank Miller did that, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Oh, boy, we got all sorts of... Yeah, this one's definitely on my list. See, DC, it's not that tough. Just list the new stuff. Anything else for Marvel?
Not that we haven't already covered, because this is from last month.
All right. Onward and forward. Dynamite. Nothing for me.
AEW Dynamite. I love that show.
Yeah. You would.
I don't think I chose anything out of this.
No, I didn't. And after that comes...
Nope. Boom!
Boom! One thing from Boom. And I don't know if I'm going to pick it up because I'm not sure if I have it or not. Go to page 242. Incorruptible Omnibus. Now, we've talked about Irreplaceable, which is...
Incorruptible.
No, the main...
Oh, that's Irredeemable.
Irredeemable, thank you. Irreplaceable. Not me. So that series, done by our good buddy Pete Krause, and of course Mark Waid, another guy who could write phone books for a living, and I'd buy him. That is the main story where the Superman character called Plutonian goes berserk. Well, this is kind of the companion series that went on along with it, where a supervillain named Max Damage has an epiphany the day that Plutonian destroyed Sky City. And he decides to turn his back on humanity. Well, it was a Plutonian turned his back on humanity. Max Damage steps up. Now he's changed his name to Max Darling and turned from his formerly selfish ways to become incorruptible. So I've been trying to pick up the books and the comics and everything. I think I'm just going to throw the flag in and pick this up. I didn't pick up the other omnibus, mainly because I'll probably just buy it from Pete Krause next time I see him. But yeah, this is the only thing. And since there ain't a hell of a lot else I'm buying, this is the perfect month to pick me up a few omnibuses.
Please go back to page 230.
Oh, I don't want to go back. 37 Grumble for no apparent reason, just to fill time while I sit there and flip the pages. Okay, I'm there.
Kurt Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse 5 is getting a graphic novel treatment, and I don't know how they can do that, but you do see 4 pages of it on the next page. It's like, oh, yeah, that's going to be just as weird as a novel was. That'll be cool. Also, on page 235, I reviewed the Avant-Gardes a while back, and I said, gee, I don't know where they're going because it seems like it's a 12-issue series, but issue 9 hasn't come out, and it's been months and months and months. Well, here's the conclusion to that story. Going to be a original graphic novel. Once again, as you see, it's the hit young adult series returns. People are learning, you know, package each thing as young adult books they sell. And I think that, along with Incorruptible, was it. Yes, that was it. And we have reached the end of the, what do they call them, the premier publishers. Yeah. And now it's the rest of the story.
I've only got one. Most of the other ones I've got are either resolicitations or just things like in Tomorrow, they had a book on Lou Scheimer, the head of Filmation.
That is a resolicitation.
Which actually, I will buy just, now.
Yeah, it's been out for a couple of years.
So, and now that this is such a piddly month, I will probably pick that up. But on page 288, under AWA Studios, Bad Mother #1, written by Christina Foss, illustrated by Mike Deodato Jr. Basically, what if the Punisher were a soccer mom? You had me at Deodato Jr., so I will pick that up, as well as continuing the Resistance that J. Michael Straczynski and Deodato was illustrating just right across from it. Other than my normal crap that I pick up, you know, resolicitations of Billionaire Island 4 and 5, some other things like that. That's it for me.
All right, Joe, go to page 281.
281. Okay. That's, I know there's Aspen variants, which are cool. No, 283 is just Aspen itself. Archie.
Yes, the Archie 10,000 page comic Spark.
You're so excited you can't even say it.
No, take a look down at the description. On sale, $8.12. 10,000 pages.
Oh, I gotta buy that.
10,000 pages for $15. Actually, I love these. They're digest size. They're actually printed well so that they don't break when you open them. It's 1,000 pages of old Archie stuff. They're fun.
Mighty fine crapper reading.
Yeah, I keep 1 or 2 in the car in case, you know, I get kind of trapped at the group home. For Upshot, on page 291, Upshot is the new comic company by Bill Jemas. And they are doing this thing called Upshot Now, which you were the one who said Bad Mother, right?
Yeah.
Well, they are publishing all of their stuff, the 3rd issues of everything, in a 144-page, $3.99 magazine.
Now, I looked at one of these at the source, and again, I may be wrong, but they're reprinting them in black and white.
I don't care.
Well, I do. I want to see some color, especially when I'm dealing with Deodato art.
Let's see.
Oh. And you're never sure how long they're going to keep doing this either. But this is for the price, this is actually a pretty good deal if you want to check out all the books without committing to them.
If you go to page 324, there's a book that I'm excited about by one of my friends on Facebook. Ditko Shrugged, The Uncompromising Life of the Artist.
I was curious about
David
this,
Curie.
But I really wanted to hear your take on this. Because we've had other books where like they're talking about creators and they end up being kind of like meh.
Ditko's, what is it, Mark Ditko, I believe, who is either his nephew, has approved of this. So this is family approved by the family. He's been able to kind of draw back the curtain on what Steve Ditko's life was like, and how he got kind of moved over into the objectivist philosophy. One of the things about Ditko's life that people don't quite get is he saw comics as a job. There aren't a lot of stories. He didn't like conventions. He went to one. He didn't like it. He would answer letters from fans, but he didn't like going to conventions. He didn't think of the whole superstar thing it was all about the work. So I'm really excited about this, especially the fact that the family has been involved in it. Flipping through here.
I will mention
on page 366.
Ooh.
Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics by Tom Scioli. He's the artist who does Kirby-like art. He did it for Godland, and he did the Transformers versus GoBots, which is the only Transformers comic I have ever read. He is doing a Kirby biography. Excited about that. You will get a preview of that on Free Comic Book Day if that ever happens. On page 374, there is a Marvel novel, Marvel's Avengers, The Extinction Key. It's a prequel to a video game, but I don't care. It's a Marvel novel. Those are always fun.
On page 376 is the aforementioned book from Tomorrow Publishing. Lou, how do you say it? Scheimer? Scheimer. Creating the Filmation generation, which is part of me. I look at the book and I just see all the stuff that I watched in the 70s, some of the stuff later, like He-Man. And this is one of those books I've been meaning to get. I've never seen it in a store. So that was an easy $29.95 I would have given you had I seen it.
Here is the warning I am going to give you because I have read it.
Okay.
Andy Mangels is a good writer, but he is basically transcribing Lou Scheimer, who thinks that everything he did is the greatest cartoon that's ever been made.
And I mean, we automatically know his animation sucked, but it was the only thing we had. If you wanted Star Trek, that's what you got. If you wanted Return to Planet of the Apes, that's all you got. Sabrina the Teenage Witch, it was that or nothing.
Sadly, he does not talk about my favorite of his cartoons.
Which is?
Once Upon a Girl, which was a porno cartoon that they made in their spare time.
Oh.
Which I have seen in a theater at one of those midnight where they show weird movies. And it is god-awful. God-awful. You sit the whole time kind of your jaw dropped as human beings spent time on this.
Did you ever pick up right above it on the very top is the American Comic Book Chronicles, the 40s. Have you picked that one up?
Yes. I'm only about halfway through. It is really dense.
I was just curious because what I love about the one I'm reading, which is the 1990s, is that's the time when I bought and ran Hot Comics. So I read what is going on compared to what the shop was doing. So it's fun. But I haven't branched out into this one yet. So I'll have to decide. It's that or Lou or maybe the Kirby book. I definitely am going to get the Ditko book. So we could probably do a review of that when we plow through it.
And that's it.
Yeah, that was it for me.
You know who's not going to give you, you know who's not going to shortchange you? Who's not going to give you less than you deserve? Who's not going to leave you hanging with like previews did this month?
Almost anybody, but I would guess these guys are our sponsors.
Believe it or not, kids, this here podcast has sponsors. And that sponsor since day one is DreamHost.com. DreamHost.com is the best bar none web host in the whole known universe. And if you need a website, head on over to dreamhost.com, put in code CRAYZ, that's KRAYZ, and get $20 off your first year. Now, if you would like to advertise here on any of the Solitaire Rose Network podcasts, you can. Just email me at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, subject advertising. Also, head on over to eBay and look for user Crazy, Krayz. That's Joe Crazy Writer, who's always telling us about the eBay in every episode of Crazy Comics and Stories. If you would like to contact us, you can do so. You can give us a call at 952-856-0519. Leave a message and we'll play it on the show. Or you can send us an email at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. Not only our sponsors, but me with all of these podcasts. The Solitaire Rose Podcast Network is filled with all kinds of audio goodness. First, there's Crazy Comics and Stories. It's been going since 2010. It drops every Monday, and it has me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard, and Joe Crazy Writer talking comics, shenanigans, and whatever we're freaking and geeking about every Monday morning. It's been going since 2010, and it's available at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. Also on that same feed is the Solitaire Rose Podcast, which is me, again, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard, doing interviews, talking about comics history, pretty much talking about whatever I want to talk about. We've also got Solo Joe, where Joe Crazy Writer does a solo podcast, and he hasn't done one in a while, so kick him in the shins to get him started. We also, on that same feed, have Solitaire Rose Series and Review, where we do DVD commentary of older comic book series. That's all at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. I also do a podcast with Wolfie B. Bad at badadvice.solitairerose.com, where we take listener questions and give them bad advice. There's also Novelcast, where I take the novels I've written and turn them into free audiobooks. That's at novels.solitairerose.com. There's also Fantastic Forecast, where myself and Adam Vermillion are going through the entire run of the Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time. That's fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com. And if you think that I'm on all of these podcasts, you're wrong, because Scrabbling Across the West is at scrabbling.solitairerose.com, where musician Dave Cofell and his wife Stephanie travel across America and then sitting down to play Scrabble and talk about the day. That's at Scrabbling Across the West, scrabbling.solitairerose.com. There are always more podcasts at the Solitaire Rose Podcast Network. Be there. Aloha.
It's all about...
Or Joe with his stuff on eBay.
There's always stuff going on eBay 24/7. If you get bored, you can just go to the eBays and check out some of the stuff that I've listed. For example, the last 5 things sold. Dark Shadows Year 1 from Dynamite. Dark Shadows being this is the one from the 60s soap at Barnabas Collins. I remember my mother-in-law was a big fan of that. And this was the Year 1, which is, I guess, a popular connotation now for coming down to, like, how did Barnabas become the vampire he was that we saw with the TV show. Justice League of America number 153. Corey, can you tell me who debuted in that one?
Justice League of America number 53?
153, 1978.
I don't know.
Ultra, Earth Prime's first
Oh, I
superhero.
even mentioned him earlier in the show.
Yeah. So I had a fair reading copy and only went for a couple bucks, but not the first appearance of Earth Prime, but the first time they had a superhero. I remember reading these. This was my golden age of stuff going backwards. I started with the George Perez Santana, which I thought was cool, but I realized was the worst costume ever. So Sandman number 7 from 1989, the Neil Gaiman run. Just what's left of my collection, not the expensive ones. Sold a Valkyrie Jane Foster #1, which was, of course, the Thor tie-in out of the War of the Realms. And is that one of those that's going all digital?
I don't know.
I thought it was for some reason. I don't remember. Lady Deadpool #1 in 2010. They did a bunch of one-shots. Women of Marvel. This is one of the more expensive of the ones because Lady Deadpool. I don't think it's her first appearance, but it's there. Way back from 1968. Not Brand Ech #9. I had a very good copy. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, that's 5. Oh, sorry, 6 comics. And of course, if you're interested in getting a Midwest Comic Book Association 30-year pin, I've still got 15 available, and you can buy it, and it gets shipped out real quick. It's kind of interesting because they've renamed themselves Midwest Comic Book Fans. So this pin, there's limited number, and they ain't going to make no more. That and all my other fun stuff on the eBays under Crazy, Krayz. Tell me you're a listener of this here podcast, and I'll include I don't know, just something fun. I got all sorts of stuff flying around here that I could just toss in as a fundy. There's only one thing left to say. Come get some.
And now we get to my favorite part of the show. No, not where I leave. I go buy some Taco Bell.
Ooh, I love
Taco Bell.
Gordita Crunch. Get it with beans. Oh, the only thing better, Taco John's got those potato olays, which is their potato product. Oh, fast food goodness has never tasted any better.
No, it's Freaking and Geeking, Joe. What are you freaking on?
Oh, well, I've pretty much exhausted my venom on DC, so I guess I won't revisit that. Physically, my back is a little wobbly. I don't know if you ever had that, Corey. You wake up and it's like you bend over to pick something up and your back kind of goes, and you're like, what the hell was that? Oh, I hate that. And I can't go see a chiropractor because I'm still on the hip healing. I really can't. He said no chiropractor, hip adjustments for a while. So I'm kind of putting, I put one of those icy hot patches on it. I've been heating it. I've been cooling it down with ice, ibuprofen. Even now, I mean, you hear me fidgeting around maybe a little bit more. It just, there's times where I'll sit at a certain angle and it just hurts. So I'm not looking forward to that because one of the reasons why we're doing our podcast on such a nice Sunday afternoon is because I'm going to be gone during our normal podcast session. I have a training session. I think, Corey, have I bitched about this before? I was supposed to be sent to North Carolina for a 2-week training session on how to be a lead.
You may have. I'm not 100%
because it was
sure
part
if
of
it was on the air or not.
It was one of those things because remember when I got banished last August down into C3 where the bad boys go before they decide if you're good enough to be a TSA person or not. I may you'll have to go back then, but so in the last couple of times I wasn't able to go. The first one was my wife got an award, a Lifetime Achievement Award from the city, so I asked not to go, and they said fine. The second time, I asked if I could not go because, well, first they wanted me to go when I was scheduled to have my hip done, my first hip, and I said I won't be in any shape to do that. Then the third time, one of my friends had said, hey, could we all cancel this and maybe go some other time? And they said no. And so I sent a note saying, well, this is probably bad timing, but, my hip's starting to act up and I'm going to get it replaced later this fall. Could I maybe postpone until afterwards? And instead of giving me an honest yes or no, they put me in the C3 and suspended me from screening. I still got paid for it. This is kind of one of those, you're suspended with pay thing. I would come to work. I would sit at a desk. Ironically, it was at the same time I think our congressmen we have congresswomen, up on mezzanine complaining to TSA that you have not hired enough people because you got these tremendously long lines. And believe me, there were people telling me you should go up and crash the news conference and have them explain why you're perfectly able to do the job, but now you've been sidelined. The hint is, if I may quote Animal House, face it, Joe, you fucked up. You trusted him. So anyways, the bottom line is I've got both hips done. I'm happy. I'm all scheduled to go to North Carolina, do the training. I had all the comic shops. It was near Charleston. I had all the comic shops planned out. I was going to do the weekend runs. We're going to reinvent the segment. What do we call? Well, where in the world is Kray? But then the Corona pandemic came along, and so all training was canceled. All travel was curtailed. I don't know if my buddies on the National Deployment Force were still traveling, but and if you really want to know what that was, go back to the early episodes of the podcast when Corey would call and try to get a run to Alaska with limited internet. Yeah, and the delay, and but oddly enough, when I was in Barrow, Alaska, I had really good internet, so whatever. So they canceled that. Well, now a couple of weeks ago, they said, hey, you know what? This 2-week training that we were going to pay lots of money and send you away for a hotel room and air flights and everything, we can get it done in 1 week if you just come down to headquarters. Oh, you got to be there 7 a.m. to 4:30. And I'm like, I'm not a morning guy. I mean, I'm lucky if I can wake up and be awake by 9 o'clock. So, but as Corey, you've mentioned before in previous podcasts, it's amazing now that push comes to shove, how much you can actually get done without having to ship people all over the country. So I'm a little disappointed. You know, I know people were giving me shit last time. Well, you should have just gone. And I'm like, dude, you're talking to a guy who spent 7 months in Barrow, Alaska, who 5 years was sent wherever they told me to, oftentimes on a 24-hour notice. I wasn't scared of traveling. What I was scared of is what happened 2 years ago. I'd be somewhere and my hip would give out, and then I spend, or in that case, 6 months hobbling around in suicidal type pain. But so anyways, they're going to teach me how to be a lead at TSA. Oh, by the way, I've been a lead at TSA for 17 years. So yeah, I look forward to seeing what they're going to teach me. To be fair, some of my colleagues who have gone through this training said it was actually good. So I'm looking forward to that. The early morning thing is got me down, and the fact that now I'm going to be sitting with my back when I should actually be, I don't know, I'll probably go walk around the block. I got to do some exercising. On the plus side, gym's open tomorrow. On the negative side, they'll probably make us wear masks. And I can tell you, Corey, after you and I were digging around at Comic College a few weeks ago, doing anything physical with a mask on is tough. How about you, Corey? What's got you freaked out?
The last few DC hardcovers that reprint stuff just feel cheap. And they're not cheap. They're expensive. They're $50. They're $40 or $50. But The New Gods by Gary Conway. No intro, no explanation, no essay, no historical data, nothing. Just here's the comics. You should be happy you got them. DC at War just came out, which is kind of a reprint of the old Fireside book, except they've taken some stories out, put some newer ones in. Again, no historical context, no here are the creators, no explanation of it. Just here you go. Here's a bunch of random books. And I'm going to be blunt. Even in the Fireside book, they had a short introduction talking about war comics, talking about the creators. And this was in 1980. Nope, nothing now. You don't know? Too bad. Sucks to be you. That's what Wikipedia is for. DC is charging a ton of money for these hardcovers. Would it kill them to pay Gary Conway $250 to write 1,000 words about his run on The New Gods? Would it kill them to give Michael Urey, who wrote the original introduction when they did a reprint of this book, to update it? $200, $250. That's not going to kill your budget, and it makes the package much better. Rather than, here you go. For all we know, they just grabbed a bunch of shit at random and shoved them in this book. If you're going to be charging premium prices for a book, you need to be giving a premium book. That's why we buy these hardcovers, because you're not going to reprint this stuff anywhere else. And the people who buy it are the people who are into the comics history. Plus, Gary Conway's still with us. Mike W. Barr has a Batman book coming out. They haven't asked him to do an intro to it. Why not? Marvel, in their high-end books, they always have an introduction. One of the things I really liked about the Fantastic Four omnibuses, they actually reprinted the introductions that Stan wrote to the original Masterworks back in the 80s for them, which was cool. They also, have all the letters pages and everything. It makes the package that much better. If I'm going to spend $125 on a book, if I'm going to spend $75 on a book, if I'm going to spend $50 on a book, maybe put a little historical context in there so that it's not just, here you go, here's a bunch of comics. Like with the New Gods, I would love it if Gary Conway wrote about how was he chosen to continue it? Why did they bring the New Gods back? Why didn't it succeed? How was he allowed to wrap it up in Justice League? Those sort of things. It really pisses me off a lot. Marvel, I don't know what's going on at Marvel. A lot of what I've heard is that the stuff they're putting out, it's the stuff that they had before everything shut down. So it's like, okay, here's half the comics we had printed before everything shut down. Then the next week, here are the trade paperbacks and hardcovers we had. Then here's the other half, and here's the other half. And then, you look in previews, and the number of new books, you could probably less than 10. They didn't tell people to put pencils down till the middle of May, so people were still working on stuff. Now is the time to strike. If there was ever a time for Marvel to put a bunch of shit out, now's the time. DC is screwing up the market. Comic shops are desperately in need of money. Marvel books sell. Why aren't you filling the shelves with fucking X-Men?
Or non-fucking X-Men. We're not fussy. I think about that too, because I go through at eBay and I look at different things. Like I bought a bunch of those Marvel Authentics. What a great time to bring that back. Just take a black and white copy, mail off a bunch, and then have the writer or the artist probably do a little sketch on the cover. You sell them for $50 a pop. You create a little excitement. You don't have to make just common. There's so many variant covers are boring, but those are actually fun variant covers. You get a little piece of art, like I got one from John Romita Jr. You got to reach back into the well and let's get some stuff done.
Joe, what are you geeking on?
I had what I call the Twine and Wine Tour. Allow me to elaborate. My wife and I just decided to go get away. And we have a couple places. This is just day trips. And one of them I've been wanting to visit for the longest time is the largest ball of twine in Minnesota. I should say it's the world's largest twine ball done by one man, constructed by Francis A. Johnson from 1950 to 1979. And in Darwin, Minnesota, straight up Highway 12 from us, is where it's located. There's a museum. It's actually in a protected area. It's got lights. It's been immortalized in song by Weird Al Yankovic. And of course, my wife wants nothing to do with it. So unbeknownst to her, when she finally did give in and to my excessive whining, because I'm like, we only got to go once. It's like, once I've been there, I'm never going to want to go back. Right.
Lies.
I
Lies.
Took her to a place called Fountain Hill Winery and Vineyard in Delano, Minnesota. Again, up Highway 12, 731 County Road 30 in Delano. And the reason why if there's ever, how do you say when things just fall into place, serendipity, baby? This was it, because when we got there, it was their first day open. Now, there'd been a winery there before, and it had gone up for sale, and a young couple bought it. And, of course, they were all ready to go, and then the COVID plague hit, and they had to close, and we drove in, and it was their first day open. I found them online just, because I basically decided if we're going to go from Darwin all the way from St. Paul, just what could we possibly visit? Looking at parks, looking at shops. I knew there were no comic shops or anything. But I saw this winery and I thought, hey, this would be cool to go. And when we got there, we were both gobsmacked to find out that it was their first day open. And, our heart kind of goes out to them, because I too at one time owned a small business. My first day going, you got everything into it. We met the owner, husband, wife, his sister was there, or her sister was there. It's a fantastic place. Even I found there's 6 wines out right now, and there's 2 of them we bought. One called Highway 12, get it, Highway 12, and the other one called Minnesota Goodbye, because if you ever said goodbye in Minnesota, it never ends. It just goes on. There's handshaking, there's hugs, there's oh by the way, and there's a bun. And the 2 wines that we tasted all 6 of them, and they were just fantastic. We had a I don't know what they call it. It was like a tray of meats and cheeses and olives and stuff that was just fantastic. It was, for the money, huge. I mean, we couldn't finish it, and I felt terrible because they didn't have any type of doggy bags, and we didn't bring anything with us. We didn't even realize we were going to stop and eat here. I just figured it's a winery. Most wineries, like when we went up north to the North Shore Winery, they aren't doing tastings. They're, stop in, buy the bottle of wine you want. Well, in this case, they're doing the whole social distancing thing. We sat outside. The garden was beautiful. Equally beautiful day. If you're at all interested, you can go to their website, and I'll spell it. Again, it's Fountain Hill Winery and Vineyard, so it's FHWANDVINEYARD.com. And again, the only reason I'm raving about it is because, first of all, I found a couple wines I like. I'm not really a big wine person. I'm more cider. But second, the fact that we got there the first day they opened, they're actually not doing their grand opening until August 5th. So just trying to look on my calendar. Let's see if I can get there. Well, I'll have to figure it out. That's still a ways out. I'm not quite sure what my schedule is going to be at work, but yeah, it's definitely worth doing. There's a little bit of construction going on around, but it's still easy to get to. We went up Highway 12, went down County Road 25, and then backtracked on 30, and bam, it was right there. So it was kind of weird, because when we pulled up, there was a whole group of people there kind of looking at us like, why are these people so surprised we're here? And as we talked to the persons that were behind the counter and realized they were the owners, they were kind of like, yeah, I mean, everybody here so far is just family and friends. And they're like, where'd you come from? St. Paul. You came all the way from St. Paul? And I said, well, for good wine, yeah, it's worth it. So I'm gushing. Of course, the highlight of the trip was getting to see the actual world's largest twine ball made by one man. And the only freaking on that was the fact that, and I should have realized it, Corey, how many times have I told you, listen to the Weird Al song before you attempt it? It's only open 10 to 8 on weekdays, and I happen to go on a Saturday. So, oh well, we might have to take another trip up there later.
Hold on. It's open 24 hours a day.
Not the museum. But the ball of twine's there,
you
yeah.
Can see the ball whenever you want.
I want to go in the museum, because that's where you... So, although my life is completer, it's I still got to go back. So, let's see. So yeah, the twine and wine tour. That's what we call it. And we didn't even get to some of the other places we were checking, but it was a fun day just to get away. And of course, last week Corey and I were talking about our geeking. I continued geeking that following Monday, Tuesday, where I had to actually. I ended up going in for a bit of training on Wednesday. Part of my schedule is I'm switching to I'm on a week, I'm off a week, but the off week I'm technically on call because I'm getting paid. And they called and said, "Hey, do you want to come in and do some training?" And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." 2 hours in.
See, they shouldn't. If they phrase that to me, Corey, do you want to come in? And no.
Oh, I
if
told
you need
them
me to, I will come in. Do I want to? No. I want to lay on the couch and listen to music and read comic books.
And that's what I told my supervisor, because I was like, "Oh, well, I suppose I gotta, because it is technically my on-call day." And it was just a couple hours training for some new equipment we got. Not a big deal. But after I was done, I decided to take a couple runs. I went up to Half Price Books in Roseville, very close to the source, and I picked up two things. I picked up a book called Subculture Omnibus by Kevin Freeman and Stan Yan, and it's basically it's comic strips, and it looks like there's annotation, and for the price I paid, $10, it's a pretty solid book. I mean, I'm over about 340 plus pages, and it's an entertaining poke at geek culture and those who participate in it. And I said, that's pretty good. And then I picked up another book. I don't know why, because I'm pretty sure I have it somewhere, but I found a copy dated, 1972, and it could be the first printing of it. Again, Dangerous Visions, edited by Harlan Ellison.
Oh.
Which is his second, and this was, actually, this might have been a book club edition, which aren't as valuable. Yeah, it is a book club edition. They're not as valuable as regular editions, but I've heard so much about Dangerous Visions, and of course the never published third one that he took all the flack for. And it was only $15, and figured, what the heck? I'll put it up on my counter and put it up on the bookshelf. Came with its dust jacket and a nice autograph by the previous owner, but it's mine now. Hoo-ah! After that, I dropped down to the source, being Wednesday and all, but they got their books late, so they were still pulling for subscribers. And usually what they do is they put the books on the shelf. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of their shelf, but they're like 3,000 square, not square foot, but long. I mean, it's huge. And so they would just lay it in the new business section, and they said, "We can't sell yet because we're pulling for subscribers." And again, I wasn't really there. I was just there to look around. And I did pick up some stuff. I did pick up number 2, 100-page Crisis Giant.
Oh, you found it.
I found number 1. I need to get number 2, and I'm hoping I can go visit a Walmart and pick it up, because I do recall seeing a number 2. I just got to find it. And the only reason I'm picking it up because apparently it fills in some of the holes that the CW crossover had.
I will look. I may have one.
If you don't want it, I'll get it from you. And then I dug through some things, and for $2 a piece, I picked up Munchkin number 1 through 7. And if you excuse me a moment while I fire up the old Clayton 4000. It doesn't work the same on a podcast. Munchkin is oops. Well, that didn't work.
Uh-oh.
That didn't work. Hang on a second.
Joe broke it.
Carry the 3. Apologize for my error. Okay. It's from Boom Studio. Born covered in black feathers, abandoned as a baby in the slums of the maze, Poe has lived his entire 11-year-old life hidden away under the protection of his adopted father, Gabriel. He spends his days secretly helping the mice, bands of orphans who roam the slums, but there's a whisper of an altogether more sinister figure in the shadows, making street children disappear. When Bianca, an overprotective girl from the wealthy city beyond the wall, escapes into the maze in search of adventure, their worlds collide. So I picked up 1 through 7. Looks like it goes to 25. So if this may be a trick, it's a trick. It may not even be just the whole series. It may just be 7 abandoned issues. But for $2, and Corey, guess for $1 what I bought 2 issues of.
Deathmate.
Nope. Nope. I bought 2 issues of Butt Biscuit, which is
I
a
would never
disturbing
have guessed that.
and edgy comic from Fangraphix. It relies on dark humor and the ever-popular gross-out factor to further its story. I have no idea how many issues were here, but there's 2 in this particular one. And if you got a picture of a guy carrying a cross underneath someone who with a big butt crack, yeah, you know this is not for your faint of heart. So I got, let's see, the new number 1 from 1993, and then the original number 1, 3 issues. So I'll probably be, if I like it, I'll probably dig out the other ones. So just for the heck of it, I actually read some comics. Can you believe that? I know. I dug through an old box that was donated for the MCBA and dug out some stuff I've never read before. I read one called Necrozia, which I guess was a crossover. This is a one-shot that led into a New Mutants, X-Force, X-Men Legacy crossover. And it, what was their names?
Celine.
Yes, the Black Queen or whatever just decides to raise havoc on the X-Men. I don't know if she's a vampire or a mutant or what her
She
deal
is
was.
both.
Okay, so she'll probably...
She's actually in those early issues of the New Mutants. She remember the whole New Roma thing where there was a Roman civilization in the Amazon?
Oh,
and
yeah.
Magma came from?
Yeah.
God, I know way too much of this shit.
Well, I was just going to go to Wikipedia, but that works for me. But this was, again, the beginning of the crossover. It looks interesting enough, but really dark and funky, as X-Men are wont to be. So, but I did read something that was a little bit fun and lighter from IDW. I got the 5-issue miniseries Starfleet Academy. And this basically takes place in the Kelvin universe. Dual time tracks going on where Kirk and Uhura discover a secret that an entire section of inside a star or the Federation is off limits, and everything in it is well, let's just say Kirk and Uhura get in a lot of trouble for discovering this information. What we find out is that a number of years ago, the NX-05 Slayton got stuck in this weird realm where they just can't get out. And we see the crew as they're going through. And then, of course, the Academy deals with actually 5 cadets on a team as they're going through the Academy. And, of course, all this stuff plows together as you're reading through the issues. And by issue 5, it winds up. And, you know, you actually... I have pretty much ignored most of the Kelvinverse stuff. I've ignored most of Star Trek's IDW altogether, with the exception of 2. I did pick up the Q War, and then I did pick up the Next Generation Mirror Broken. I'll get back to that, but the Academy was a fun read. Art was a little simplistic, but it didn't distract from the story. Now, I've already talked about the Mirror Broken because I actually bought the graphic novel. Now, to my recollection, though, you'll want to dig out the Free Comic Book Day book that comes from 2017 because there's a complete story in there covering the voyages of the ISS Enterprise, their continuing mission to conquer strange new worlds, enslave new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man gone before. Now, I do not believe the Free Comic Book story is in the actual graphic novel. And again, I don't know where the graphic novel is. So if you've got your copy, keep it because you want to pair it with your graphic novel. Again, both things, all 3 things sound like they're pretty fun to read. Our old pal from the Facebook, the voluptuous redhead Sabrina Zarembra. Oh, how could you forget her? She's redhead. She's got huge. Well,
Tracts of land.
She's now not only a geeky redhead, but she is a spokesperson for a site called TurboComicsShop.com. TurboComicsShop.com.
Is it run by your friend Turbo?
That's what I thought initially, but you go there. I've been there, and it's interesting shop. A lot of variants, a lot of key books they're selling. So if you're looking for like maybe first appearance of Thanos, they might have it. And she has a deal up where if you use her code GeekyRedhead10, you get. I'm not sure what if you get some stuff off or if you get her everlasting gratitude. But you can either go to turbocomicShops.com or stop first at Sabrina's Facebook page because she's put it down there, and she's a friend of the show and she's doing something new. In addition to posting pictures that when my wife sees me lingering at, I get cuffed side the head. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me geeking. Corey, what are you geeking on?
Joe, they have finally made the decision at work as to how they're going to handle the rest of the year. There's a whole lot of detail there, but there's only one thing that I needed to know. I will be working from home for the rest of the year.
Great, as if we had a hard enough time making you a recluse.
It's a wonderful thing.
See, and you always tease me for, you got to wear pants.
I wear pants.
Uh-huh.
The cool thing is now that, I've been working from home, I just wear, I used to be the guy with the vest. Now I'm the guy with the wrestling and comic book t-shirts, and that's all I'm going to wear. Because at the group home, that's all I wear too. So
yeah, because you do phone stuff.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Well, phone stuff and computer stuff.
See, Chris does. Sometimes they use Zoom, so she has to,
Yeah, I never have to Zoom with anybody.
Yeah, which is good. So
I wouldn't either. I wouldn't Zoom with people. No. I found I'm moving stuff around, trying to, clean up, and I found a trade paperback that I had not read, Night Force, the original series. Joe, for a shiny new dime, what was Night Force?
Night Force was a series, I believe, done by Wolfman and Gene Colan, Marv Wolfman, and it dealt with they called him the Baron, and he was inside Winters. He was inside of a haunted, what we think of as a haunted house, and while people could go in and out, he could never leave for some reason.
And some of the doors would go back in time.
Yeah, he did seem to have the ability to travel. Now, I know there was this original series that I bought, and then I believe they revisited in a second series, or was it a mini-series?
There was a second series in the 90s. What it was a 14-issue series, and it was unique at the time because it would have a revolving cast. It was almost like Mission Impossible with mystic stuff. And I think the problem with it was Wolfman and Colan had done Tomb of Dracula. And then they came over to DC, and when they do a horror book, it is nothing like Tomb of Dracula. And
which was really too bad because I enjoyed the living heck out of it. And
in the introduction, because DC used to do introductions to their books, it did not sell well in comic shops.
I'm scanning my shelves because I know I have a hardcover somewhere.
Canceled, they started getting the sales reports from newsstands, and it was doing really well on newsstands.
Well, a lot of the stories, if I recall right, they were kind of the done-in-one type thing. So
the
wasn't
first one was a 7-parter.
Okay.
And then one part, and then 3-part stories.
But it
did really well on newsstands. However, this was back when DC was losing newsstand distribution. So they tried it again in the 90s. Brent Anderson did the first few issues. Joe, what has Brent Anderson drawn that you like?
I've got the Night Force Complete Collection hardcover.
Yep.
But it's just the 14 issues.
Brent Anderson did the first story arc in the new. What did Brent Anderson do that you like?
Sorry, I'm looking at
Astro City.
I'm looking at the awesome Marv Wolf and Gene Colan art. Look at it, I'm drooling already.
But I read through that book over this week. Also, one of the books that I picked up was the DC Universe by John Byrne. Again, no introduction at all. And it's just a bunch of the one-shot stories that John Byrne did while he worked at DC, including Ganthet's Tale, which was a graphic novel that he did with science fiction writer Larry Niven to kind of do a complete revamp on Green Lantern, which they then completely ignored and killed off the Green Lantern Corps. But that's a fun book. I'm also reading the Gary Conway New God stuff that I never read. It's interesting. It's really clear that Gary Conway did not know what the hell Jack Kirby was doing. So I can see why they kind of shuffled it off to the side and ignored it. But really, that's what I've been up to. It's been a lot of work this week. And last thing I want to say that I'm geeking on, one of the things that we have at the group home, because they're all on Comcast, they've got where you can watch Pluto TV on their regular TV.
Oh, that's owned by Disney, right? The Mickey Mouse Planet?
No. Pluto TV is this internet TV network, basically, that has hundreds of channels. And if you've got a Roku or streaming TV, you should pick it up. It does have some on-demand, but mostly it's, tons of networks. There's a Mystery Science Theater 3000 network. There's a Riff Tracks network. There are all these networks. You can watch CNN, MSNBC, Sky News, BBC in real time. One of the channels is a We Love Animals channel. And as I was looking for channels for the client I was working with today to watch, we came upon one that was 24 hours of kittens and puppies. I was then told after a half hour, I am not allowed to ever change the channel. So the client I work with got to watch kittens and puppies all day, and I got to read comics. So is life any better than that? Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for 2 hours, even though we said this would be a short episode because Joe.
Yeah, I regret the error.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Now, the problem, Joe, you've been ending these shows with dad jokes.
Yeah.
And I'm just tired of it. Why don't you just put all these dad jokes you've got in a big book?
Corey, that's a novel idea. Hit my music.